Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Chilltown Hoops. I'm your host, Jermaine. The youngsters call me OG. My friends call me J-Dub. Let's get to it. From the President of the United States to the janitor that works in a school, the chief custodian, each of those people, they have people around them that talk. But they have one person, that when that person talks, they listen. Might not do everything that they say, but when that person talks, they at least listen. It's important to know who you have around you and the kind of influence they have on you. That's why the most successful people have people around them that are smarter than them. The people who you see fall by the wayside, the reason why they do that is because the people around them aren't really invested in them. They're actually invested in them. And they're telling these people what they want to hear. In the process of them telling them what they want to hear, that benefits them. But it doesn't benefit them in the way that it should, which explains why when the gravy train stops, everything falls apart. Case in point, the people that are around Ja Morant, I don't believe care about him. He's got to reevaluate his circle. Absolutely he does. Ray Lewis got himself caught up in some nonsense in 2001, and he had to reevaluate who he was hanging around, because I'm going to end up losing everything. And he did that. He reevaluated who he was hanging around, and he decided to cut ties with some people. Because when you are around people and everybody is telling you you're the man, you could do no wrong, everybody loves you. Well, you hear that 100, 200 times a day, you start to believe it. But that other voice, it starts to get drowned out. And that's the voice of reason. Now, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe we shouldn't go here. Maybe you shouldn't be around these people. Because you're listening to this and this large amount of people that are around you, which means that maybe, just maybe, that circle needs to get cut. It needs to get cut down. And you need to evaluate who actually has your best interest. Who cares about you? And the person that I think about the most in this, I think about his father. Ja Morant's father looks like his homeboy. He doesn't actually look like his dad. He looks like his homeboy. One of the things that I've always respected about LeVar Ball is that he made it in no uncertain terms what his stance was as a patriot. These are my boys. I am their father. Make no mistake about it. We are not homeboys. I am their father. And they respected that. That's the way they carried themselves. This is not my man. That's my dad. That's how I have to talk to him. That's how I have to conduct myself around him. I don't see that with Ja Morant. I see a dude who his father is captivating the attention instead of paying more attention to what's going on around his son. Which is his son are around people that don't care about him. Because if they did, then he wouldn't do the things that he's doing. And you have to be responsible for these kind of people. Not just from a business standpoint, but personally. Like, this is somebody that I care about. I don't want to see this guy. I've seen him from the beginning when he first started doing this up until now. And I don't want to see this thing go away. I don't want to see this thing go away. I don't want to see him get hurt because I care about him. I don't care about this thing as much as I care about him. And that's where the problem lies. A lot of these people, they don't care about him more than they care about this thing, aka the gravy train. Let's keep this thing rolling. So we're going to tell Ja everything that he wants to hear. We're going to tell Ja that he's the man. And when you hear this kind of stuff regularly, and I can appreciate the pressure of being a pro athlete and making that kind of money. And when you hear this kind of stuff regularly, immediately you start to think, can I do whatever I want? Can I act however I want? Maybe I can do whatever I want. And you can't take a look outside of yourself because you're not yourself. If you notice these people that's hanging around you, well, who are all of these people? Because all of these people weren't around in the beginning. No, they weren't. And the reason why I know that is because you weren't acting like this in the beginning. All of these people show up and now you're acting a different way. And the reason why you're acting a different way is because the influence that all of these people have on you. Meanwhile, this person over here, who's been the voice of reason, is starting to get drowned out. So the question that needs to be answered is, how are you going to move forward with this? Well, the first thing that needs to be addressed is this circle of people that you have around you. Who do I have around me? And how am I moving with these people? Because if I keep listening to this instead of listening to this, I'm going to be out the door. And not only am I going to be out the door, the people who actually care about me, that are possibly trying to tell me that I need to straighten up, I can't hear them. And I'm going to let them down because I got this going on. More people around him don't care about him than the people who are around him, who actually do. And the people who do, I think they're losing sight of what's going on. His father, for example. I think he's losing sight of what's going on. I got to stop being a fan and I got to start being a father. And I got to figure out what's going on with my son, not the ball player. Take the ball player off the table. I got to figure out what's going on with my son. Because I'm going to lose him. I could care less about I could care less about him being a ball player at this point. I'm going to lose him as a son. And I got to figure out what's going on here. Who are these people around you? Why are these people around you? Let's get back to basics. Because you and I have a good thing. We have a good relationship. And it's getting hampered by all of these other things. I mean, the guy's brandishing a gun. He's in the news for all the wrong reasons. I'm a third generation project kid. My mother grew up in the projects. My grandmother grew up in the projects. I grew up in the projects. I know what street dudes look like. I know what street dudes sound like. I know what street dudes walk like. I know these people. I was raised by a street dude. And Ja Morant is not a street dude. He's not. But he's portraying himself to be that. And the reason why he's portraying himself to be that is because the people that he has hanging around him. That's where the problem lies. And that has to get rectified. Otherwise, he's going to end up not just in the wrong situation, because he's already done that. He's going to end up ruining himself as a man. Forget as a ball player. He's going to end up ruining himself as a man. Speaking of ruining something, the New York Knicks are ruining the Boston Celtics. I want to make sure we're clear on that. We haven't talked much about the New York Knicks because the New York Knicks they've been a running joke. Let's call it what it is. They've been a running joke for years. We're going to make the playoffs, only except you don't. They had four straight 50-loss seasons. So they've been a running joke for a long time. You go out and you sign Julius Randle, which now is looking like one of the best offseason signings of that time. Looking like a great offseason signing. But as of recently, they got a 9-game winning streak going on. Right? In those 9 games, they're giving up 111 points a game. Out-rebounding their opponents plus 11. Quigley's coming off the bench. Quigley has been playing fantastic. Coming off the bench, averaging 18 a game over the last 9 games in these wins. Playing fantastic. I've said this in the past, and I still stand on this logic. Offense sells tickets. Defense sells parade tickets. Do the New York Knicks have a championship caliber team? I'm not going to go that far. No, I'm not going to go that far. But they look to me like a team that's going to make a lot of noise. The catalyst in this is what can Julius Randle show us in the playoffs? Because the last time we saw him in the playoffs against the Atlanta Hawks, he was less than stellar. He was less than stellar. But the New York Knicks have made Jason Tatum less than stellar. And you guys know I'm a Jason Tatum guy, but I got to call it like I see it. I got to call it like I see it. Jason Tatum in the last 2 games that they've played against Boston, against the New York Knicks, the last 2 games that they've played against the New York Knicks, he shot 30% from the floor, 30% from the floor, and a little more than 25% on the long ball. Last night's game, he shot 30 shots. Of those 30 shots, 17 of them were from the long ball line. There was nothing in between. It was either at the basket or at the long ball line. Nothing in the mid-range. Nothing in the mid-post or on the block. Everything was either at the basket or in between. That's where he gets himself screwed up. Even though the Boston Celtics are one of the better long ball shooting teams in the game, to rely on that as much as you do and not put the other stuff in, I think it hampers his game. He does the other things, makes the right plays. In addition to making the right plays, being on the defensive side of the basketball. He was a +6 last night. +4, +6 last night. He does all those other things, rebounding the basketball. I believe over the last 11 games, he's averaging 10 rebounds. I think he leads all small forwards in the NBA in rebounding for the season. So he's doing the other things. It's the in-between stuff, offensively. The mid-range game, the mid-post game. That's where he has to get better. That's where he has to become more efficient. Because I think if he does that, he helps his group out even more. Even more. This New York Knicks team is going to be a lot to deal with in the playoffs. I'm not sure. If the playoffs started today, they would have to see Cleveland in round 1. I don't know if they could beat Cleveland because Cleveland is their front line. I think that they might be too much to deal with. I think that would be the difference in the series. Considering Evan Mobley, I don't know if he could match Julius Randle's production offensively, but defensively, I think he would be hell for Julius Randle. And their rim protector in Jared Allen, I think that he'd give them more production than Robinson on both the offensive and defensive end of the floor. And then you have your wing players. I've always been a big fan of R.J. Barrett. A lot of people give him flack because he was the number 2 overall pick in the draft, and I can appreciate that. When you're picked that high, you're a cornerstone of the franchise, which is what I was very much prepared for him to be. And I think we're in year 4 now, and I'm starting to accept the fact, like I've said this to you guys in the past, by year 5, when you see a guy by year 5, this is who this guy is, right? So I'm starting to accept the fact that R.J. Barrett may be an 18 to 22 a game guy, with his best season being 25, something like that, at the 2 guard spot. And that's great. That's great. I'm accepting that fact. But he's a really good piece to what they're doing. Very good. And I don't think that this New York Knicks team is that far away. Now, I'm not going to jump out the window and go, yo, they can win the Eastern Conference, because that's not true. I'm not going to say that because I'm not sure that that's true. However, they've been playing some really good basketball lately. Very good. Very good basketball lately, and I'm pleased with what I'm seeing from the New York Knicks. Absolutely I am. And it's good for the NBA too. I've said this in the past. The NBA is at its best when the Knicks are good, when the Celtics are good, and when the Lakers are good. All the other teams, it helps, no doubt about that. But when these 3 teams are good, the NBA is at its best. Anthony Davis looked fantastic yesterday against Golden State. Now, I've said this to you guys before, and I'm going to stand on the logic. Even when they get James back in the lineup, This team is going to go as far as Anthony Davis's health takes them. Don't let the fact that the way Anthony Davis played last night or these last two games, I believe he's averaging 38 in the last two games, 38 and 8 rebounds. Don't let this fool you that, he plays better without James. That's not true. That's not true at all. James wants him to play like that. James wants to play off of him. And that only can continue if Anthony Davis can stay healthy. And if he can stay healthy, we're going to find out what this team is really made of. So we're in the middle of the basketball season. Got about a month left and then the playoffs. So we're in it. Let's do it, guys. You know where to find me at. But until then, take it light, but take it.